Hi, Indian cinema. Is it up there already with the global cinema, or is it going to create its own place in global cinema and set a new trend? Is it defining how Indian stories are being told, really? Or is it just imitating how stories are being told globally by mainstream production houses? Another thing is, how does cinema impact humanity? What are the moral obligations, the social obligations of filmmakers, or do they need to have one? Or is this about the cash registers? And there's nothing wrong with that, because when the cash registers ring, this is the economics of cinema. They create jobs and whatsoever. So what's all this got to do? So here we talk today to my guest about the impact of cinema in the world and how cinema plays an important role in the world, especially Indian cinema. Let's talk. Hello, 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 and welcome to my podcast, A Pint of Imbecile Wisdom. Everyday people with everyday stories and hopefully great inspirations for the rest of us. So, keeping up with the theme of humanity and leadership on this season, I'm also throwing into the mold one of my passionate topics, which is cinema. And I basically want to see, how does cinema influence us? Being originally from India, I want to talk about how India's role in global cinema is, and so forth. And with me today, I have a young thinking director who I had the pleasure of watching one of his first films, which I thoroughly loved. And he very kindly agreed to speak to me as soon as I called him up the other day. So, Jugal, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, hi Tagore.
Hi.
Thank you for having me for this. And like you said, it's also something that any filmmaker loves talking about, which is influence of film on people, because eventually we all strive to do that, right? We all want to tell a story to sort of have an impact in some way.
Absolutely. And it's not just the cash registers, as it happens with some filmmakers, and I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's, at the end of the day, it's a business. So,
it's like
yeah, sorry.
like the other day with my brother, it's he's an architect, and we got into this discussion about how a creative form can be very commercial as well. And you have buildings that are designed just plainly with a view to accommodate people, and then there are buildings that are designed to leave this breathable, livable art space as such. So yeah, it's the same applies with every art form. One is the more massy one, and the other is more that really impacts.
Okay, so Jugal, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and your background?
So I am a Bombay kid. I grew up in Bombay, and I did everything from Bombay. My schooling, my full education. I'm a chartered accountant by education, and growing up in the school days, during my school days, I used to always write for these, being in a Catholic school, we had these Tuesday assemblies, and we had these within those assemblies we had these skits and sketches where there was this overwhelming theme of moral values that needed to be an integral part of the skit. So more often than not, I used to participate in these, and what ended up happening was that one of the teachers took notice of the fact that I wrote them not so simplistically, and they were always very they held some sort of value for the audiences. So I think I was in 8th grade or something of that sort. It was pretty late in the schooling career, you can say. One of the kids showed up and said that I need help with the skit, and that's when the first ever commissioned writing gig of my life was that bit, when I wrote for another class's assembly skit, and then it became sort of a usual arrangement and that came because of the teacher who was in charge of dramatics. She was the one to tell the other student, no, this is not working. You probably go and run it through with this kid in the other class, and that's how it all started. And it was something that was always there, the writing bit. Telling a story is very human thing, because we love listening to stories and we love telling stories.
Yeah.
As Salman Rushdie once said, that if you look at any kid, the first thing they ask for after their basic needs are done, which is food, clothing, shelter, and the parental societal thing, the first thing they ask for is, tell me a story.
Yeah.
And that comes because I think it's very of course it comes from a deeper survival instinct sort of a area of the human psyche, which is, I want to learn through your experience so that I don't have to go through a terrible situation of survival. You want to learn more about, when you go to a new place, you want to learn about a new place. So when they have come to this planet Earth, they want to learn about planet Earth. And then what better way to learn than by stories of others? So it's a very primal thing, but at the same time, when I was writing just for no particular reason, there was no particular reason. I always thought of it as a retirement plan. Oh, I will, have my career and so and so, because like you said, the coffers need to be filled first. And I was always of the inclination that this will be a retirement plan. Screenwriting will be a retirement plan. Writing for so and so will be a retirement plan. And that never happens. That really never happens. You don't retire to write, or you don't retire to do these things. You do them and just focus on them. So that switch happened in 2019. In 2019, I think towards the mid of 2019, and from there on, I just continued I started with pitching to a lot of producers and production houses, and what I realized is that involves a fair bit of compromise in terms of what you have in mind for your narrative. And I had this conversation recently with a friend about how someone who has bills to pay, immediate bills to pay, will compromise and say, yes, oh, why didn't I think of this? Oh my God, that's such a brilliant idea. And then compromise on their own work. And the feedback that's come from the other side is accepted and imbibed in the script. But I said no. I don't want to. That's not what my character would do at this point in time, and that's not what my character would have done at that point in time. And I said that either I toe the line and start putting my work for sale with a lot of changes and creative control lost, or I do this on my own. And doing this on your own is it's a challenging prospect, because of course there are few things that you, more than the creative part, that you need to be involved with, which is the production part, the money part. Even if you have a funding on board, you need to make sure that the person who has put the money in gets their money back. So it's very complicated than just going out and making your own film. Even though a lot of these, I've heard a lot of these filmmakers these days say that it's become so easy. Just go out, shoot with the camera, take your media back home, edit it, put sound on it, and there you have it. You can make a film in $100. And I'm like, it's easier said than done. You can do that, and the consumption is then narrowed down to YouTube and others. Nothing wrong with that, but saying that you can do that is very, it's sort of a pipe dream to think that, oh, you can make a film at home and then there'll be a anyone who wants to tell a story, writes a piece of music, all they want is an audience, right? Ultimately, it's about getting your voice through to the audience, and that never really happens with homemade films as such. So there's a methodology to attach to it, and unfortunately, when you're doing it on your own, it's limited to the commercial part of it.
Okay. Now that's interesting. I never knew this about you, Jugal. I didn't know that you had another career.
Yes, I started off as a chartered accountant, and after becoming a chartered accountant, uh, um, I realized that that's not something that I imagine
Wow.
myself doing for the rest of my life. And I started coming from a family, a business family. I decided to join the family business, and within a year of that, I realized that I cannot be, not even a year, in fact, a few months of doing that. I realized that I can't be just doing the same thing that the family business entails, and I started my own entity, which is more like a horizontal, or so to speak. There was an industry which was cannibalizing the industry that the family business was in. So I became that cannibal, and started to work in that area of construction materials. And I did that for good 8 years. And I was parallelly, I was always thinking, I was writing a little, writing a little on the side, thinking that, like I said, retirement plan. And there came a realization when I was like, okay, there is no retirement plan. It never happens. You'll be just burdened with responsibility, and what you dream of doing post retirement, you can do it right away. And there is no, I mean, this is a luxury of meeting your basic requirements. When you have earned enough of a living, you can think of a career switch. I would not advise people who have yet to do that.
Okay, so have you had any formal training in cinema?
Yes and no.
Elaborate on that.
When you say formal training, it requires you to go through a rigorous film course, film school. I would say no. If it's also includes going through works of other makers, critically examining them, going through video essays, then it's a yes.
Yeah, but then if you're critically reviewing works of great masters, what qualifies you to be able to critically analyze them? I mean, you've got to have some sort of a basis to start on, right?
Correct. So not critically, I would say not critically remark on their work, but to understand their work more,
Okay.
and to sort of learn from their work. And these days, with the advent of YouTube and other mediums, you have video essays on something like, say, a Criterion Collection or something, any of these YouTube channels that help you with understanding and analyzing basis of filmmaking.
It's
And
like,
again,
I think it's like Quentin Tarantino, right? I mean, he had no formal training. He worked in a video shop. He got exposed to all these films, and look where he is today. I mean, yeah.
yeah, I mean, with Tarantino, he is the poster boy of people who want to, who grew up watching films and then want to make films, who want to tell stories. And in fact, he had for him again. Parallel would be having this channel called in India called World Cinema. I'm not too sure about the name of the channel, but it was a World Cinema channel, and it's no longer there. And my exposure with that early on was probably the catalyst into getting into the mindset of telling a story through screenplay.
So then you ventured out into the world of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Was The Last Ride your first film?
Yes. First short film, yes.
Your first short film. So tell us a little bit about that film. I mean, what was the soul behind it, the trigger behind it, and how did you go about making this film, which I thought was amazing, coming from a non-film background?
The city has passed many hands. That is for sure. So I don't want to go so far back. So I started with what makes it Bombay like I know it to be. And then I came up with 5 different aspects, which was starting with the business aspect of it, which is it was a great port, and then the business flourished. And then there was the Bollywood aspect, there was the cricket aspect, there was the stock market aspect. So these are the things that made Bombay flourishing, so to speak. And then there are the other micro elements, the local train, the transport system, the traffic, and the lovely human way of dealing with adversity and so on and so forth. So I was thinking about these. How do I make these 5 elements come together, and tell a story about Bombay? And that was my idea. I was inspired greatly by this filmmaker called Julio Medem, who was a Spanish filmmaker, and what he always did with his films was that he used the geography or the topography or the location as a character, and told a story in relation to that particular space. So I wanted to do the same with Bombay, and that was my inspiration. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I used to piece the whole thing together. And I think I finally completed the first thing in 2011. I was still, I was 2008, 9, 10. I was still doing my CA, and then again after doing my CA, I took it up and I was doing business. And finally, I thought I had it, yes. And I thought about pitching it to several makers, but I could never do that. Once I famously as in within myself, I tried to pitch it to, I will not name names, but there was a very a filmmaker that I really love from India. I chanced upon meeting him at an event which was celebrating 100 years of Indian cinema, and I told him about it and I pitched it to him, and then he said, just send me an email, send me a one-pager and send me an email. And then I never heard from him. And once I never heard from him, I was really distributed into not writing anymore. But still, I kept writing a little bit here and there. And then finally, when I made the career switch, I went back to that particular script as a starting point. And when I first read about it, when I first reread it rather, what I realized is that it's grossly raw in terms of the quality of writing, but the content is there, the story is there, the soul of the story is there. And then I got rid of the cobwebs, I dusted off the ugly parts, and I primed it like a proper film script, and I wanted to really make it. And then when I reached, I was very sure about what I wanted to do. I started to go to various filmmakers and I started pitching the film. And again, what I realized is that they like it, but they want certain changes. And those changes are, I think, mainly there for commercial reasons, or even some of them wanted it for creative reasons. So I was not willing to compromise on that aspect of it. In that process, there was a steep learning curve involved with that particular script, and we got various actors on board. We had when I say we, I mean I teamed up with a recognized EP in the industry, and I said that I want to do this. I'm going to arrange the funds for it, and we're going to make this film. And we started working on it aggressively. Met some really great actors along the way. Their perception of the project was very different before they read the script and after they read the script. Really good actors, and again, I'm not going to name names. They started to take projects seriously, and then when it was actually on the brink of going on floors, one of the main actors, the key actors that we wanted tied down, had another clashing commitment with a big budget Bollywood film, and it all came down to that. And he said that, okay, you want my dates from Feb to March, I can give you in October because I have these commitments. And I said, okay, how do we work with the other actors now, because other actors have all been given these dates. And just when we are thinking about all these things, and we are like, okay, fine, we will transplant the whole project, or how do I get people to say, okay, fine, now we don't do anything right now. We go back and do this in October. And so they, just when we are thinking about doing all these things, pandemic happens. The 2020 March 2020 first lockdown that was declared. That came after actually we started working on the last ride. That is when, because I was trying to get the team to stay till we arrive at Ek Anya, which is the name of the film that we had started in terms of feature length film. And I said that let's do a short film first, and then we'll, because I had the team committed till March. I was like, I'll use the team till March and we'll do a short instead of doing a feature. And that is how Last Ride was born. Last Ride, again, when I wrote it, the script is just 7 pages long. And the typical rule about 1 page equal to 1 minute, sort of a thumb rule that we have. I was thinking, in my head, it's not a 1 page, 1 minute sort of a film, because it involves a lot of, it has this visual aspect to it that I had in mind. And I said 2 minutes per page, and it will be a 15-minute film. And we can, then qualify for several of these 20-minute film festivals and so on and so forth. And just as we are going to shoot, the dates were, I remember very, very vividly, 19th, 20, 21st was the date of March, the dates that we decided to shoot. And the pandemic was declared. And the body that, the film body that we have, which is IMPA in India, had served a circular saying that no films will be, no productions from 19 onwards. So we shelved the whole thing in the first attempt. The feature wasn't made and the short wasn't made. And we were all facing, going through the lockdown. And then finally, the EP called me in the month of July saying that, do you want to pick it up by any chance? Because we had already met an actor and we had already finalized, this whole project. And you're like, do you want to think about resuming the whole project? I'm like, if the team agrees, I'm game on. And because that is the date, he called me a day before the hotels had reopened in India. And that was very important because it was an outdoor shoot for us outside Bombay. So hotels was the basic requirement that we had. And I said, yeah, sure. But who's the actor that we are thinking, that we have in mind? And several names were thrown. And one name that stood out for me was Raj's name, Raj Arjun. And not because of I'd seen his work or anything of that sort, but he sent me an image of his current look. And I was like, this is interesting. Let me just quickly watch 2 minutes of his work. It's easily accessible on all these OTT platforms. So let me just watch him act, and then I'll come back to you. And I did a little bit of research, and he had some critical acclaim about his performances that far. And I said, yeah, I mean, if he's willing to do it, let him read the script. It was sent out to him, and his response, because the actor that we had in mind, he said, no, I don't want to shoot in pandemic. I don't want to shoot, even though the hotels have opened up, whatever, I don't want to shoot right now. So I said, okay, let me try with this particular actor. And I was expecting him to say no. No one was very, gung-ho about going out and working at that point in time because of the pandemic. And especially there was some other parallel thing that was happening at that point in time, which was some black mucus thing or something like that. People were talking about it. It was getting worse, the pandemic. So I said, I was expecting a no, but he said, yes, I will do it. I want to do it. And then the decision was down to me whether, we should go ahead with this or not. And I said, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm getting bored over here. The disappointment of not having filmed the feature that we have been working for, the shot that we have been working on. If it's happening, let's do it. And that's how it happened.
So Thanks for that, Jugal. Now, I want to sort of channel this a little bit into two other segments within the amount of time that we have left. One of them is the state of Indian cinema on the global platform, right? And the other one is how our cinema or any cinema impacts humanity. All right. Now, so the first question is this. I mean, we have a rich cinema history. Okay, we love our song, our dance, our actions, our colors, and everything. And to be fair, it comes from that. It stems from the fact that people in India at one stage wanted to go and watch cinema, not as cinema, but to escape from their current life. Okay, no matter what it was, you know, whether it was to do with an economic factor or to do with that you were a boring job and very thing. So they wanted to go and they wanted to see more than the acting, more than the story itself. They were interested in escaping out of their current lives and going and watching colorful, good-looking people dancing, singing, and all that kind of stuff. And that is still very valid today, and I think it's a great industry because it makes a lot of money, creates a lot of jobs. Purely from a cinematic perspective, where do you think we stand as India, okay, on a global platform in terms of cinema?
See, I think the way, if you look at the evolution of the industry, the way we evolved, it's so beautiful. When we started films, if you look at the film history and you look at countries that started making films at first, and how the infrastructure had to be developed for it. Okay, so pehle it was not like you make a film and then it's there on television or it's there on whatever. It was mainly the form of entertainment was radio, and then I don't want to get into the film history of how film started, but if you look at the countries that were into it, they were mainly developed countries, so to speak. And India wasn't really a developed country, in the time that we started making films. It was partly because of the British influence of how cinema was introduced to the country and the infrastructure that they brought. So the films that we had early on, it was very surprising if you look at some of these films that were there in the late 20s and early 30s. Again, not going into deep into that, but they were mainly all these films that were there. They were very crude form of storytelling. There was no song and dance as such. I think that whole thing about how Bollywood has actually come into being and how the world perceives Bollywood to be, that I think is mainly thanks to the musicals that were confused to be what the standard expectations of a film should be in the 50s, I think, or the 40s. I'm not too sure of the time, but yeah, I think a song and dance became integral part. Of course, again, because Indian culture is the folk songs and the ghazals and the baithaks, and the whole culture was around music, and the whole storytelling format was around songs and music, expressing emotions through whether it's a couplet shairi or whether it is a proper devotional song. It was always through song and music. So I think it became like an integral part of Indian cinema, and that's how it is perceived right now, that okay, we have music, we have songs, we have playback singers, and we have dancing actors. And it's not, we don't categorize our films as musical. It's just become a different genre altogether called Bollywood now. So if you're asking about how the perception is around the world, it is going to be that, even though we have great films which are devoid of they don't have any song or music or dance as such. So yeah, I mean, it is a fact that if you look at, if I say the film is from India, it's sort of the notion that people have is that it will have that song and dance routine.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at sort of Iranian cinema, Korean cinema, some of the European cinema, right? they're a far away stretch from what we have, our palates are used to, right? But still, you can easily take a film out of these places and give it to somebody who doesn't speak the language and say, "What's this film?" Given the number of films that we make a year in India, there's not many of our films that we can share with our foreign counterparts and say, "Watch this film from India. It's not just about song and dance. It's actually cinema. It's about cinema. It's about good cinema. It's about good storytelling. And maybe I'm stretching it too bit, but it tells an Indian story."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think we're going to get to that stage, given the fact that India is not an actor's land, it's a star's land?
Okay. I think stars are there everywhere. Even if you look at Hollywood or you look at other countries, there are stars in their own right. And of course, like I understand what you're trying to say. But also just the opposite side, there's a flip side to this. The industry is so vast that we do have these films, by the way. We do have these films every year. If you look at, there are 3 or 4 films that come out every year that have a very Indian story. That is universal. And I mean, of course, nothing wrong with song and dance stories also. They're also very universal.
Of course not, yeah.
Yeah, but just like you said, I understand your question very clearly about how, I can watch an Iranian film and I can watch a South Korean film, or I can watch a film from Denmark and feel the same things that was intended by the filmmaker. And I think that is there. I have seen with some of the films that, I mean, it's top of my head, movies like Lunchbox, films like
PK, Tare Zameen Par, you know what I mean?
So PK, Tare Zameen Par, they also had some bit of song and dance, or they had songs in them.
They did, but they were very inspiring global cinema. You could show those films to anybody, even if they didn't speak the language. You could show them the film and they would actually get it.
Correct. So that is why I think Raju Hirani earns his badges is the fact that he can make these global films and they can still be same with I'm not saying the same filmmakers, please, but Christopher Nolan, he makes amazing films with deep human. I know people think that they are movies about space and physics and so on and so forth, but there's deep human emotion involved at the core of it.
Absolutely.
And so does Raju Hirani. Raju Hirani tends to make these really deep, meaningful films, and at the same time make them entertaining, and that's why they do well in both at box office and with who tend to criticize cinema. So, but there are films which like I said, I was stating, there was a film called Ames. There's a film
Amir. Yeah.
Ames. There's an Assamese film that was released some time back. These are all, I mean, these are just top of my head. I can think of many other. Ship of Theseus, Tumbad, Court, Marathi film called Court. There are other films that are there. There are so many. I'm missing out on many films, but there are films that you can actually literally pick out from releases every year, and you can say that okay, these can do well at world cinema level.
Yeah.
And we do, because the industry is so large, there are so many states, people come up with films and stories which are brilliant, and I sort of, though the core of Indian cinema, the money makers are of course these films which have some sort of like you said, people want to leave their sorrows and problems behind and get. I think that happens with any form of cinema if you are really going to consume in the right sense. Any form of story, if you go to a music festival, you get lost in it. It's like a visceral experience for anyone who's there. If the music is to your liking, of course. And again, with films, it goes the same. I think if there are makers who can really pull off the trick, they make you forget about all your problems, and the problems of the characters and the complexity of the plot is what you're thinking about for those 2 hours. So I do feel that we do have such films that can be served on the global platform. Serving movies like RRR also, because I think that's probably the most viewed Indian film in the last
few years.
Speaking of global cinema and how Indian films can do well, why are we focusing just on Bollywood? Look at Malayalam films.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
they can be like like you said, recommended to anyone across the globe, and it can probably leave the same impact as, say, a South Korean film or an Indian film.
Yeah, and you know what I mean, that it must be the era that I was born in and the upbringing and whatever. So Bollywood's still a part of my life. It's a huge part of my life. I will anytime go, and there's a few films that if I mention them on here, you'll probably never speak to me again. And these are my favorite films. Okay, but at the risk of it, I'm going to say I can watch Andaz Apna Apna once a week. I know exactly.
It's actually opposite of what you're about to say. What you're expecting me that I will be saying.
Yeah.
There's a poster in my studio which is of Andaz Apna Apna.
There you go. So you know what I mean.
See, anything that makes you fall in love with storytelling is great. It need not have the stamp of approval from critics or from award functions or so on and so on.
Right. Let's talk about that, and let's weave in there whether filmmakers should have and as I said, the cash registers are very important, but should filmmakers have a social responsibility to what they put out? And should they be responsible to say, yes, my film should leave people laughing, funny, yeah, but every once in a while my film should also make them leave the cinema feeling hope, feeling good, or having a thought about something in life. What's your take on that?
My personal take is that so broadly speaking, ideally there should be no should, would, could. There should be no. I mean, so cinema is a form of expression. You're expressing whether
Exactly.
you're playing music or you are painting, or you are creating, say, a structure. When there's creativity involved, I think there is this expression, and that is all there should be. Express yourself. But at the same time, I feel that the medium has become so powerful. Movies, films as such, whether it is you, whether it is me, they leave an impact, and they leave a lasting impact, and they also become some sort of a moral compass for many of these consumers and moviegoers. And I feel that yes, there is a responsibility that filmmakers have, and I think that responsibility is not specific to what they believe that people should believe in. Then it becomes close to propaganda, that you're trying to promote. I feel that the filmmakers' responsibility is to show things as they are. Of course, they should have the filmmaker's voice. There should be social commentary, but it should be as objective as it can be, and leave things as they are. Not trying to take the best example of it is Meghna Gulzar's Talwar.
Yeah. Yep.
Showed both sides of it and left it at that, and then it was. I mean, the matter was sub judice. I think it was when it was in development. Probably that played a part. I don't know what played the part, but I think it was satisfying to see that the filmmaker did not choose to say the story in one way or the other, allowed both, because one of the most crucial things that we look at after someone views your work is debate. You want people to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that left automatically room for debate. So I think when filmmakers do that, they do not pick one side or the other and just present the story as it should be, and then allow debate to happen between your audiences. That is what I feel is the responsibility of a filmmaker or a
But
story.
but what you're saying there, Jugal, is about filmmakers making cinema.
Correct.
Today's day and age, not just in India, people calling themselves filmmakers are making projects.
Yes.
They're making a product. They're not making cinema. They're using the medium of cinema. They're using the pathway, the road of cinema, but they're making products.
Yes.
I'm going to have Jugal, who's a successful director. I'm going to take actor A, actor B, who's a superstar, and I'm going to look at what's the common theme at the moment, what's the common genre. I'm going to package those together, and I'm going to make a product. Storytelling and the story often takes a back seat, right? And if you notice, at least over the past decade or so from Hollywood, I mean, the movies that were ruling the roost were like the Avengers and so forth. There was very little of like classic films like The Godfather and Heat and whatever coming out. I mean, if you look at Christopher Nolan again, I mean, he did the Batman trilogy, but he made it a human story. And Batman's been done a million times, by Tim Burton or whoever else. But so I think that there is a difference between making a product and making a cinematic, a film.
And I think it's somewhere it is incumbent upon the maker to have a voice. Of course, without your voice, any other director or a writer or filmmaker can come and do the job. So it's important to have a voice. Yes, it's important to because ultimately you're guiding somewhere with your films. I'm not saying that sometimes violence is glorified. The whole debate happened during Kabir Singh. Whether this kind of
yes
behavior is it do you subscribe to it? The actors were asked, the writer was asked, the writer filmmaker was asked, and sometimes you have to just let it go. Like I will never be able to write a negative story, okay, or a story. I was recently writing about something about on the lines of for example, the last ride. Okay, even though the character is killing and murdering and very violent, I'm not promoting violence. That actually the whole thing around last ride, I think, was lost in translation because there was no dialogue, there was no outright commentary on things. But the character was not a real person, in my opinion, in my vision of that character. It was just he was the symbol of the society that has such affinity towards the last right that मारने वाला क्या मरने वाला क्या मारने वाले को भी उससे प्यार है कि अंतिम संस्कार करके दिखाओ. So then finally he is killing when he doesn't believe in giving. He's just killing, taking lives. And then finally when the society pledges to give and keep these superstition of last rites aside, and you pledge to give, is when you actually save. And in the end, the character ends up saving a person's life rather than killing a person. So that is the character was like sort of symbolic of the society that when you have the affinity of last rite and don't see anything else what makes sense, you're just going to kill. But kill as in like you're allowing someone who can live to die by not giving what you can actually give away. And that was the idea of it. But then like I was asked so many times that why was it so violent? Why so much of violence? Why is promoting violence through film is not a great idea. People get ideas. I'm like, people watching, if they are really understanding what the message is about, then they would not do that. So I do feel, yes, the makers have the responsibility of letting the audiences know that this is not cool, this is cool. Somewhere I think it kind of allows the audience's conscience also to be at play.
So at the end of this podcast, I want to ask you right now 2 questions. The Last Ride, I thoroughly loved it. When can the general world get a chance to see it, or will they get a chance to see it anytime soon?
In India, it's already there on Hotstar. uh, on Hotstar, Disney Hotstar.
On Hotstar. Okay, right.
It's been there since I think 2021. It's just that I think since you were based in Singapore, you're based in Singapore. It was difficult to get through
Yeah,
to you. So
you sent me a private link to it.
I have Vimeo link for that because of the geographical
Yeah,
restrictions that
correct.
Disney has in Singapore. But this film is there on Hotstar since June 2020. Yes, June 2021.
Okay, so the last right, Disney Hotstar. If you can get a hold on it, watch it. So, Jugal, I want to ask something. This is part of the podcast, but it's also personal to me because I'm vested in what you're doing. What's next for you?
Next is something that I'm developing right now. I'm writing something right now, and hopefully by the end of this year, depending on the things that I have in mind with regards to the cast, if it happens, great. So it's like I said, I don't want to rush into making something just because it's been a while. But yeah, there is something in the works in terms of a feature.
Wow. Well, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Can't wait for you to send me a WhatsApp saying, "Hey, Tagore, I'm on the floors, and I'm doing this film," and I'll be so happy to hear that.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so much for talking to me, Jugal. I really, really appreciate that, and the fact that we could talk about something very close to my heart, which is about how cinema impacts humanity, and so that's been tremendously appreciated. So thank you very much.
The pleasure was all mine.